When you think of the word repentance, for me, and this is going to sound strange, so just follow me here, Judas sometimes comes to mind. I know that doesn't sound right. Judas should not come to mind in terms of repentance, right? Judas comes to mind in betrayal. Those words usually go hand in hand, right? We have great betrayers throughout history that we look at. You know, did you know that in Saratoga, New York, there is a statue, small statue, probably no taller than I am, of a boot. That's right, a boot that you wear on your foot. All right, and it is dedicated to the major general who was significant in the Continental Army of winning the Battle of Saratoga against the British. But his name's not on that statue. It's because his name was Benedict Arnold. And we don't honor traitors. But he was pretty helpful then, before he was a traitor. But we're not going to put his name on that statue now because of what he became. You could go back further in history. You have Brutus, right, of course, with Julius Caesar. He was a traitor, at least in Caesar's mind. But before then, you have Judas. There is no name that is tied to betrayal more than Judas. Well, speaking of reading, I was reading a book recently entitled The Trial and Death of Jesus Christ, and it was by James Stalker. And to preface this, James Stalker, is, from any research I could do, is not a member of the Lord's Church. I'm not sure what denomination he was a member of. He has long since passed away. I think the book was written maybe in the 1700s or so. He was Scottish, Irish, one of the two. But it's an interesting read, and he does a fantastic job of laying out a historical account. And that's really what he's doing here. And he does take the four Gospels and other historical writings from Josephus and others, and he lays out a historical account about the trial and death of Jesus Christ, beginning in the garden until he's put in the tomb. And he points to this concept of repentance here at one point in time. And he looks at Judas and kind of thinks the whole what-if scenario. What if things would have been different? When I was a kid, we laugh at these sometimes. When I was a kid, my dad would always say, if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. That's what he used to always tell us. But at the same time, sometimes it's interesting to think, what if? What could have been? You read in Matthew 27, verse 3, it says, Then Judas, his betrayer, seeing that he had been condemned, was remorseful and brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders, saying, I have sinned by betraying innocent blood. You think, Judas, he felt bad about it. He was sorry. But he lacked the humility to turn back to God. In this book, James Stalker here, he words this, and I'm just going to read this section to you because he words it much better than I could. And I think it's a powerful thing to think about. Because you think of Judas, and he lives through Christ's ministry. He's there. And then he betrays him. And he sits here and he feels bad. He's remorseful. One could even make the argument that he is penitent in terms of, I know this wasn't right. I know I need to fix it. The quote from the book is this: Then he, Judas, rushed away from the temple. But where was he going? Oh, had it been in him to flee to Christ, that breaking through all obstacles and rules, he had rushed to him wherever he was to be found and cast himself at his feet. What if soldiers had to cut him down? Then he would have been the martyr of penitence, and the very day he would have been with Christ in paradise. Judas repented of his sin, he confessed it. He cast from him the reward of iniquity, but his penitence lacked the element which is most essential of all. He did not turn to God. True repentance is not the mere horror and excitement of a terrified conscience. It is the call of God. It is the letting go of evil because good has prevailed. It includes faith as well as fear. All right, that is the layout from the book, and you think about that what if? What if Judas would have truly repented? What if he would have sprinted back as Christ was on the cross, screaming that he was sorry, that he was wrong? And we know he would have been forgiven. We know he. But he didn't do that. It's easy sometimes to say, I'm sorry. I messed up. But that's not what repentance is, because repentance has that effort and that ability and that necessity to be humble and to turn to God. And that's not always an easy thing to do. And it's not always an easy thing to admit that that's what you have to do. But in order to have what it takes that. And that's a part of humility overall.